The salty breeze off the bay carried the faint scent of diesel and pine as I stood on the dock, staring at what was left of my sailboat. $40,000 worth of teak, fiberglass, and memories now reduced to splintered wreckage floating against the pilings like confetti from a party nobody wanted to attend. A demolition crew hired by the Lighthouse Cove Homeowners Association had done the job just hours earlier, under the triumphant supervision of Marlene Pettigrew, the woman everyone simply called the dock warden. 3 months ago, I would have exploded. I would have screamed, called the police, maybe even swung at someone. But today, I just stood there quietly, phone in hand, recording every shattered plank. Because today, I knew something Marlene didn't. The Marina she'd spent years terrorizing wasn't hers to police. It was mine. My name is Ethan Caldwell. 6 months earlier, my great-uncle Harlan passed away at 92, leaving behind a modest house, a stack of yellowed nautical charts, and a manila folder labeled Lighthouse Cove Marina Corp. stock certificates. Inside were shares representing 68% ownership of the private corporation that actually holds title to every slip, dock, and inch of submerged land in our little gated waterfront community. Harlan had bought controlling interest back in the 80s, quietly paid the taxes, and never told a soul. The HOA, led for the last 4 years by Marlene Pettigrew, had simply assumed the marina belonged to them because no one ever challenged it. Marlene was the kind of woman who weaponized rules the way other people wield charm. Retired early from a mid-level government job, she had moved here with her husband Richard and immediately volunteered for every committee that involved clipboards. Within a year, she'd rewritten the covenants to give herself authority over all waterfront activities, started issuing fines for everything from dinghy paint colors to the angle of mooring lines, and appointed herself the sole interpreter of maritime law in a landlocked state. Boat owners grumbled but paid up. Most were weekend sailors who didn't want the hassle. I wasn't a weekend sailor. I'd grown up on boats. The 36-foot sloop now floating in pieces had been my escape, my project, my sanity after a bad divorce. When I bought my house on the canal 2 years ago, I checked the plat maps, seen the marina marked as private, separately owned, and figured it wasn't my problem, until Marlene decided it was. Started small. A yellow notice taped to my transom claiming my boat was 3 inches beyond allocated slip boundaries. Then another citing unaesthetic solar panels. Then fines, $50, $100, $200. Stacked up faster than I could respond. I paid the first couple just to keep the peace. But when she threatened a lien on my house, I lawyered up. My attorney, a no-nonsense woman named Dana Ruiz, asked for every document I had. That's when I cleaned out Uncle Harlan's attic and found the folder. Dana's eyes widened as she flipped through the certificates. Ethan, she said, you don't just own a majority of the marina. You own the only entity with legal rights to the water itself. The HOA has been bluffing for years. We could have dropped the bomb right then, filed an injunction, shut Marlene down overnight. But Dana saw a bigger opportunity. Let her dig, she advised. Every fine she issues, every order she gives, every contractor she hires without authority is another brick in a very solid lawsuit. Document everything. So I did. I installed discrete cameras on my boat and dock. I saved every email, every certified letter, every text from the HOA group chat where Marlene bragged about teaching these boat people a lesson. I watched as she escalated. She demanded I submit to a safety inspection conducted by her brother-in-law, a retired car mechanic with no maritime credentials. When I politely refused, she called the County Harbor Patrol. The actual harbor master came out, walked the docks once, shrugged, and told her my boat was perfectly compliant. Undeterred, Marlene circulated a petition claiming my vessel was an environmental hazard because of possible bilge discharge. She convinced 2 neighbors to sign it. The state environmental agency sent an inspector, who found nothing but a spotless bilge and complimented me on my oil-absorbent pads. Still, she kept pushing. Late-night emails. Anonymous complaints to the Coast Guard, who also found 0 violations. Fines now reaching into the thousands. All the while, I stayed calm, paid nothing, and kept recording. During this same period, I started doing my own homework on Marlene. Turns out the queen of compliance wasn't quite as spotless as she claimed. Her waterfront lot featured a brand new elevated deck that extended 10 feet farther over the water than county code allowed. Construction permits? None on file. She'd also rerouted her yard drainage straight into the canal. No silt fence, no vegetation buffer, clear violation of stormwater rules. Satellite photos from the past 5 years showed the transformation plainly. I didn't confront her. I just forwarded the images and county code sections to Dana, who forwarded them to the right agencies with a simple note. For your information, the breaking point came on a crisp October morning. I woke to the sound of heavy equipment. By the time I reached the dock, a track hoe was already swinging its bucket into my boat's hull. Marlene stood on the bulkhead in a bright orange safety vest, arms crossed, directing the operator like a conductor. A small crowd of neighbors watched in stunned silence. I didn't yell. I just held up my phone and started live streaming to the community Facebook group. For those just joining, I said evenly, the HOA is currently demolishing my legally moored, fully insured vessel without any court order, lien, or legal authority. I'll let the professionals sort this out. Within minutes, phones were ringing. The demolition company, suddenly nervous, stopped work and called their office. Marlene screamed that they were contracted and had to finish. The operator shut the machine down and refused to continue without written proof of ownership and permission. Proof Marlene couldn't provide. By noon, 2 sheriff's deputies arrived. By evening, the local TV station was running drone footage of the half-sunk wreckage with the cheerin', HOA power struggle turns destructive. That night, Marlene's house was lit up like a Christmas tree. I could see silhouettes arguing through the windows. Richard, her husband, was an insurance broker who'd made a comfortable living writing inflated policies for waterfront homes by exaggerating flood and storm risks tied to unregulated marina activity. Guess whose activity was suddenly looking very regulated? 2 days later, Dana and I attended a special HOA meeting called To Address Recent Events. The clubhouse was packed. Marlene took the podium first, voice trembling with righteous indignation, claiming she'd acted in good faith to protect property values. She produced a stack of old covenants and declared the marina common area under HOA jurisdiction by default. Then it was my turn. I walked to the front carrying only the manila folder. I laid the original stock certificates on the table, followed by the recorded deed showing the Marina Corporation's ownership of all submerged lands and docks, followed by the state charter proving the corporation was still active. Then I played a short montage, 10 minutes of Marlene's own emails, texts, and the live stream of the demolition. The room went silent. Finally, I spoke. For years, this community has paid marina fees, slip rents, and fines to an HOA that had no legal right to collect them. Every boat owner here has actually been leasing from Lighthouse Cove Marina Corporation. I now control that corporation. Effective immediately, all prior fines are void. All prior rules written by the HOA regarding the water are null. I turned to Marlene. Mrs. Pettigrew, you personally owe the corporation $34,000 in unpaid annual assessments dating back 4 years. Payment plans can be arranged. Her face drained of color. I wasn't finished. Additionally, the county has already issued notices of violation on your property for unpermitted structures and illegal stormwater discharge. Fines are accruing daily, and the sheriff's office has opened a criminal investigation into the destruction of my vessel, felony vandalism, and trespass on private property. Someone in the back row started clapping. Then another. By the time I sat down, most of the room was applauding. The fallout was swift and merciless. Marlene hired the most expensive attorney in the county, who quickly realized the case was hopeless and advised settlement. She refused. The state piled on environmental citations. The insurance commissioner launched an investigation into Richard's agency for misrepresenting risk factors tied to non-existent HOA authority. Federal wetlands officers showed up after discovering Marlene had filled tidally influenced land without permits. At the annual Harbor Festival, usually Marlene's personal victory lap, I reopened the marina under its proper name for the first time in decades. I offered every homeowner a fair, transparent lease with clear rules drafted by actual maritime attorneys. I installed new docks, added pump-out stations, and started a native plant buffer program to clean up runoff. People who'd avoided the water for years brought their boats back. Marlene didn't attend the festival. She was too busy supervising contractors removing her illegal deck under threat of daily fines. Rumor has it she and Richard sold the house at a loss 6 months later and moved inland. My new boat, a slightly larger cutter, sits proudly in what is now officially Slip A1, reserved for the majority shareholder. Sometimes, on quiet evenings, I sit in the cockpit with a cold drink and watch the sun sink behind the hills. The water is calmer these days. The neighbors wave when they pass. And every time a new boat ties up, the owner makes a point of stopping by to say thanks. Power, I've learned, isn't about swinging the biggest hammer. It's about knowing exactly where the foundation is and waiting patiently while someone else builds their house on sand.